The moment my stepmother stood up to say she was cutting me out of the will, I swear the whole room stopped breathing. Even the clock on the wall seemed to hesitate between ticks. She smiled, that practiced, elegant smile she used to charm investors and crush opponents, and lifted a folder from her bag. "Before we proceed," she said smoothly, "I have a new document my late husband signed 6 weeks ago." I didn't say a word. I just watched, because the lawyer, Michael Reed, had already clicked on a hidden file on his laptop labeled, "If Evelyn Speaks First." He gave me the smallest smile. That's when I knew. My father had planned for this. My name's Claire Morgan. I'm 32, and for 15 years, I've watched Evelyn Cross, my father's second wife, erase me from his life, one polite lie at a time. Now, sitting across from her in that polished conference room, I was about to watch her try the final eraser. The red light on Michael's recorder blinked steadily, capturing every word, every twitch of her mouth. Evelyn looked flawless as always. Silver blonde hair, perfect posture, a silk scarf knotted just so. Behind her sat her entourage, her sister, 2 cousins, all dressed in matching gray tones like a well-trained jury. She slid the papers toward Michael. "This supersedes whatever version you have," she said, voice dripping with control. Richard signed it himself, properly witnessed and notarized. 3 days. That's how long it had been since we buried my father, Richard Morgan, CEO of Morgan Developments. 3 days since I stood at his graveside, wondering if he'd ever really stopped loving me, or if Evelyn had made sure I never had the chance to know. Michael took the papers calmly, adjusting his glasses as he read. The only sound was the clock. Tick, tick, tick. Evelyn folded her hands, radiating triumph. Given Claire's absence during Richard's final years and her lack of involvement in his care, he chose to redirect her share. Redirect. That's what she called stealing my inheritance. I wanted to scream about the dozens of calls she blocked, the messages she deleted, the birthdays she made me miss. But I didn't, because I saw something she didn't, the look in Michael's eyes. He knew something, and suddenly I realized this wasn't my father's final act of weakness. It was his first move, when Michael smiled again and said, "This changes everything." Evelyn didn't know yet, but the game she'd been winning for 15 years had just ended. Grew up in the house on Willow Lane, the one with the oak tree in the front yard and the kind of windows that let in too much morning light. That house used to smell like my mom's perfume and Sunday pancakes. After she died, it just smelled like polish and silence. Evelyn moved in 18 months later. Dad called her a blessing. I called her temporary, but she was neither. She was a takeover. At first, she played the part well. Soft voice, thoughtful gestures, flowers in the kitchen. Then came the changes. Mom's piano moved to the basement, her paintings replaced by modern art. And one day, I came home from school to find her wedding dress boxed up in the garage labeled donation. I was 9. By the time I turned 11, Evelyn had redesigned everything: the garden, the living room, even my father's wardrobe. She replaced laughter with rules, warmth with routine. Dad barely noticed. Or maybe he did. And that was the worst part. He let it happen. Whenever I called from college, I'd hear the same lines. "Your father's in meetings. Your father's resting. Your father's busy right now, dear. Busy being managed, I guess. Busy being erased." When I finally showed up unannounced one summer, the house felt like a museum. Evelyn's family filled it. People I didn't know, all calling her Mrs. Morgan, like she'd always been the one. Dad looked older but lighter, laughing with them by the pool, holding a drink, pretending everything was fine. When he saw me, guilt flickered in his eyes. "Sweetheart, you should have called," he said. Evelyn smiled at me. "We would have prepared your room." My room had become a guest suite. Neutral colors, generic art, no trace of me. They put me in the pool house that night. Later, I overheard Evelyn whisper to her sister, "She just shows up when it's convenient. Richard deserves peace." Peace. That's what she called isolation. Year after year, she built walls between us. One phone call at a time, one missed holiday after another. And I started to believe her. Maybe I was the problem. Maybe I'd failed him somehow. But 2 years before he died, Dad called me, secretly. We met for coffee. He looked tired, scared, but there was something else in his eyes. Resolve. He handed me an envelope. "Give this to Edward Lane. Hold it until the time comes." "Dad, what?" "Just promise me," he said. "Promise you'll remember." I promised. And now, sitting in that conference room, watching Evelyn hand over her fake will, I realized what he'd meant by the time comes. Because when I finally opened that envelope, the truth about Evelyn Cross didn't just destroy her story. It rewrote mine. The morning after the will reading, I didn't sleep a second. I kept hearing Evelyn's voice echo in my head. Redirect her portion of the estate. Redirect. Like my father's love was a faulty shipment. At 6 a.m., my phone rang. The name on the screen made my stomach tighten. Edward Lane, my father's oldest friend, and the man he told me to trust. "Claire," he said quietly, "it's time. Meet me at my office. Bring no one. Trust no one but Michael." There was no small talk, no condolences, just that one sentence. It's time. The city was still half asleep when I pulled up outside Edward's law firm. The streets glowed with that strange early light that makes everything look like a memory. He was waiting for me. Older, thinner, but his eyes sharp as ever. He slid a sealed envelope across the desk. "Your father knew everything," he said. "About her. About what she did." My hands shook as I opened it. It was a letter, written in my father's messy, looping handwriting. The kind he used for personal things, never business. "My dearest Claire, if you're reading this, it means Evelyn has made her move and I'm gone. I need you to know that I saw it all. The blocked calls, the lies, the way she kept you from me. I knew and I let it happen, not because I didn't love you, but because I loved you too much to let her destroy you the way she was destroying me. I couldn't fight her openly, but I could plan. He'd planned everything. I created a new will. A trust that makes you the primary heir. If she contests it, she loses everything. And if she does, the evidence I've collected for 3 years will go public. Evidence of fraud, manipulation, even medical tampering. Daniel has one key. You have the other. The second key is hidden behind your mother's portrait in the basement. Go get it. Then trust Daniel and Edward completely. I couldn't protect you in life, but from death, I can." By the time I finished reading, I was crying so hard I couldn't see the paper. My father had known everything. Every lie, every scheme, every cruelty Evelyn had fed him, and while she thought she was in control, he was quietly building a cage around her. Edward's voice broke through my thoughts. He called it his dead man's switch. If Evelyn challenges anything, all of it goes public. Emails, recordings, witnesses. I pressed the letter to my chest. "He played her," I whispered. Edward nodded. "He didn't just play her. He won." But before I could even open the safe and find that second key, I had no idea. Evelyn was already planning her next move. And she wasn't done fighting yet. By noon, I was standing in the basement of my father's old house on Willow Lane, staring at the portrait of my mother that Evelyn had once tried to throw away. It hung crooked now, dusty and forgotten, but behind it, taped carefully to the wall, was a small metal key wrapped in a note that simply said, "For when she shows her true face." I knew exactly what that meant. An hour later, I met Michael and Edward again in Daniel's conference room. The same one where Evelyn had declared my disinheritance just a day earlier. This time she wasn't invited. Michael placed a thick folder on the table. "Your father called it the Morgan Legacy Trust," he said. He moved every major asset, the company's shares, properties, investments, into it. "You're the primary beneficiary. Evelyn gets 30%, but only if she accepts it quietly." "And if she doesn't?" I asked. Edward's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Then the world finds out who she really is." They showed me what my father had built. A web of legal protection so tight that Evelyn couldn't challenge anything without detonating her own destruction. Every attempt to dispute the trust would trigger a clause, automatically releasing a collection of evidence to authorities, the media, and every board she sat on. He'd planned it like a chess game. and every move she made now led only one way. Checkmate. But that wasn't all. He'd hired someone. Ryan Cole, a former FBI investigator, to document everything. 3 years of surveillance, recordings, statements, witness logs. Ryan had been watching Evelyn the whole time. I flipped through one of the reports. There were transcripts of phone calls, notes about deleted messages, proof of forged signatures, and even photos of Evelyn meeting with a disgraced accountant. She'd been planning to take over the company by making my father look mentally unstable. Why didn't he just leave her? I asked quietly. Edward sighed. He tried. She threatened to ruin you, said she had friends in the industry who could destroy your career. He believed her. So he pretended to play along, while building this. I looked at the pile of files. My father's handwriting was on half of them. Every date, every lie, every act of cruelty documented in neat, methodical detail. He hadn't just fought back. He'd turned his own suffering into evidence. He knew she'd make her move, Michael said. That's why he smiled when she stood up yesterday. She triggered his plan herself. For the first time since his death, I smiled too. It wasn't joy, it was justice. But justice, I was about to learn, doesn't come clean. Because when Evelyn realized she'd been trapped, she decided to burn the whole game down. 3 days later, the phone call came. Michael's assistant sounded nervous. Evelyn's lawyers just filed a motion to challenge the trust. I almost laughed. Of course she did. She couldn't help herself. Evelyn Cross didn't believe in losing. By noon, we were back in the same conference room, the air so thick with tension it felt like static. Evelyn arrived in her usual uniform of control, tailored suit, diamonds that caught the light, and that mask of effortless poise. But behind it I saw cracks. Her eyes were red, her voice just a little too sharp. Beside her sat her lawyer, Jeffrey Cole, the kind of man who smiled without warmth and talked like every word came with a bill. And behind them, her sister Marianne, trying too hard to look supportive. Michael didn't waste time. Ms. Cross, before we proceed, I want to play something for the record. He opened his laptop, selected a file labeled Protocol 14, and pressed play. Evelyn's voice filled the room. Jeffrey, I need you to make it airtight. If the old man won't sign willingly, we'll have to get creative. Then Jeffrey's voice. That could be risky, Evelyn. Her reply was venomous. I don't pay you for warnings. I pay you for results. That girl doesn't get a cent. The silence that followed was almost painful. Michael looked up calmly. These are recordings your husband made in his own home. Perfectly legal. Jeffrey's color drained. Evelyn froze, then forced a smile that didn't reach her eyes. You can't prove when that was recorded, she said. Actually, Michael replied, sliding over a printed report. We can. Time-stamped, authenticated, and verified. Marianne's hands trembled. Evelyn? Michael leaned forward, voice steady and sharp. If you continue this challenge, every one of these recordings, along with your emails, bank transfers, and witness statements, becomes public record. You'll lose your share and face possible criminal charges. For the first time, Evelyn looked scared. Real fear. Not for her freedom, but for her reputation. Still, she tried to fight. This is extortion. No, I said quietly. This is consequence. Evelyn's jaw clenched. He never loved you, Claire. I smiled. The same smile my father used when he'd already won. He loved me enough to prepare for you. Michael closed the folder. You have 72 hours to decide, Ms. Cross. Accept the will as written, or contest it, and trigger full disclosure. As Evelyn stood, her mask shattered for just 1 second. I saw the rage, the panic, the disbelief. Then she turned and walked out, heels clicking like gunshots on marble. But what none of us knew then was that Evelyn wasn't leaving to surrender. She was leaving to destroy what little she had left to lose. That night, I couldn't shake the sound of her heels echoing down the hallway. Evelyn Cross had walked out like a woman holding her breath, because she still thought she could win. Michael warned me, people like her don't go quietly, Claire. They burn everything they touch on their way out. He was right. By morning, I was getting messages from people at Morgan Developments, rumors, accusations. Claire manipulated her father in his final days. She forced him to rewrite his will. She's using mental health claims to steal the company. Classic Evelyn. When she couldn't win legally, she went to war socially. I should have been shocked, but honestly, it felt predictable. She'd been building narratives her whole life. Only this time, my father had prepared for that too. Michael called at noon. "Come to my office. There's something you need to see." When I arrived, Ryan Cole, the investigator my father hired, was already there. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. Coffee in one hand, folders stacked high. He greeted me with a nod. "Your father was the most meticulous man I've ever worked for," he said. He planned for every move Evelyn could make. Even this one. He opened his laptop and pressed play. The video showed Evelyn at a dinner party, laughing with her sister and a man I recognized, Joseph Mercer, a disgraced accountant from a rival firm. Their conversation was clear as day. "Evelyn, if I can make Richard look incompetent, the board will hand me control. I just need the right paperwork." Mercer, "You'll have it. I can fake inconsistencies in the books." Evelyn, "Good. Once the will's changed, I'll deal with the daughter." Ryan paused the video. "That was 18 months ago," he said. "Your father recorded it himself." She thought he was too sick to notice. I sat there, stunned. He knew she'd try this exact thing. Ryan nodded. He didn't just know. He counted on it. The next file showed screenshots of emails Evelyn had sent from my father's account. Fabricated messages designed to make me look ungrateful. Every lie she'd ever told was right there, cataloged, time-stamped, and backed by witnesses. Ryan looked at me. "She's desperate now. That's when people like her make mistakes. Big ones," he was right again. Because while we were reviewing the evidence, Evelyn was already doing something reckless. That same afternoon, she called a press contact and offered to tell her side of the story. But when that interview aired, something unexpected happened. Instead of saving her reputation, it finished her. The interview dropped that Friday evening. A polished news anchor sitting across from Evelyn Cross, perfectly lit, perfectly poised, perfectly fake. She wore black, spoke softly, and let a single tear slide down her cheek. "He was confused near the end," she said, her voice trembling just enough to sound believable. "Claire wasn't around. She only came back when the doctors said he didn't have long. Then suddenly everything changed. His will, his behavior, everything." The anchor leaned in. "So you believe Claire manipulated her father?" "I don't want to believe that," Evelyn whispered. "But I loved Richard. I protected him, and now I've been painted as some kind of villain." I sat in my apartment watching it, jaw clenched, shaking my head. It was a performance, one she'd perfected years ago. And for a few hours it worked. The comments section was full of sympathy. Poor woman, gold digger daughter, another rich family drama. Then, just before midnight, everything changed. Ryan called me, voice buzzing with adrenaline. "She's finished. Check the news feed. Now." When I opened my phone, the headline hit like thunder. Exclusive. Hidden audio reveals Evelyn Cross plotting to forge husband's will. A 30-second clip. Her voice, crystal clear, saying, "Make sure the signature looks real this time. The old man's too weak to notice anyway." Within an hour, every major outlet had it. The same journalists she'd tried to charm were now tearing her apart. Comments flipped. Sympathy turned to disgust. The story she'd built crumbled faster than it had taken her to lie. Ryan was almost smiling. "Your dad's system worked. He had all of it time-stamped and scheduled to auto-release if she went public." "He planned that too?" I whispered. Every second. By morning, Evelyn's publicist had quit. Her attorney was dodging calls. Her own sister, Marianne, had given a statement confirming parts of the story. And Evelyn, for once, was silent. Michael called around noon. "She'll call you soon," he said. "Not to apologize. To negotiate. That's what people like her do when the world starts closing in." He was right. At 4:32 p.m., my phone rang. Her voice was quiet, strained but still sharp. "Claire, we need to talk. Privately. You don't understand what your father left behind." "Oh, I understand," I said softly. He left the truth, and you're finally choking on it. But Evelyn wasn't calling to beg. She was calling because she had one last weapon left, and she planned to use it on me. When Evelyn called, her tone wasn't the same calculated confidence she'd worn for years. It was slower, measured, like she'd rehearsed the words 100 times and still didn't believe them. "Claire," she said, "I don't want to fight anymore. Let's meet, just us. No lawyers, no cameras. I can explain everything." I didn't answer right away, because I could hear something beneath her voice. Panic. And desperation always meant danger with Evelyn Cross. Michael's warning echoed in my head. People like her don't quit. They just change tactics. Still, I agreed to meet. Not because I trusted her, but because I wanted to see what losing looked like on her face. We met the next morning at a quiet cafe downtown. Rain streaked the windows. She wore sunglasses even though it was overcast, hiding the damage sleepless nights had done. "You look tired," I said. She ignored the jab. "You think you've won?" she said quietly. "But your father wasn't who you think he was." I almost laughed. "You really want to go there?" She leaned forward. There were things he hid. Things that could destroy you if they came out. Classic Evelyn, twist, deflect, attack. But this time I was ready. I pulled out my phone and hit record. "Go ahead," I said. "Tell me all about it." Her jaw tightened. "You're just like him. Manipulative. Cold. He used me, Claire. You have no idea what it's like living with a man who planned everything, even from the grave." She wasn't wrong about that last part. But the way she said it, it sounded like regret tangled with fury. "You stole from him," I said. "You isolated him, forged his name, drugged him. You used his love as leverage." Her lips trembled, not from guilt, but rage. "He loved me more than you. You know that, don't you?" For a second, her mask slipped completely. The woman who'd spent 15 years controlling everyone in her orbit was unraveling right in front of me. She leaned in, voice trembling. "Do you really think that trust will protect you? Wait until you see what happens when the truth about those company funds comes out." She was bluffing, I could tell. But it didn't matter. Ryan had already traced every cent. There were no secrets left that she could twist. I stood. "This meeting's over." As I walked away, I heard her whisper behind me, almost to herself. "I should have finished this years ago." It wasn't loud, but it was enough to chill me. Because for the first time, I wasn't sure if Evelyn was talking about the will. Or about me. 2 hours later, the call came from Ryan. He'd found something in her bank records, something my father never knew. And it changed everything. Ryan's voice on the phone was sharp, tense. "Claire, don't go home. Meet me at the office right now. You need to see this yourself." I barely had time to ask before he hung up. That's how I knew it was serious. Ryan wasn't the kind of man who panicked. When I arrived, he was already pacing, stacks of documents spread across the table. Michael was there too, sleeves rolled up, looking as if he hadn't blinked in an hour. Ryan pointed at the papers. "Your father thought he'd mapped all her accounts, but there's one he missed. Offshore, under a fake name. And guess what? She's been moving money into it for years." "How much?" I asked. "Over 15 million, Ryan said. Mostly from shell companies tied to Morgan Developments. But here's the real kicker. She started the transfers right after your father's first hospitalization." My stomach dropped. "You mean she was stealing from him while he was sick?" Ryan nodded grimly. "And that's not all. Some of those transfers were labeled as medical expenses, but they led to a clinic in Switzerland. Private, unregistered, no patient records." I frowned. "So what was she paying for?" He hesitated, then turned his laptop toward me. On the screen was a name, Dr. Adrian Holt, a neurologist specializing in experimental treatments, and apparently someone with a history of quiet settlements. Ryan's tone was low. "We found communications between him and Evelyn, emails. She was requesting dosage adjustments." "Dosage of what?" "Sedatives," he said softly. "Strong ones." The room went silent. Michael exhaled slowly. "You're saying she drugged him?" Ryan nodded. "Not enough to kill him, just enough to keep him confused, suggestible, That's how she got him to sign those fake documents. My hands were shaking. She didn't just manipulate him. She broke him. Ryan looked at me, expression grim. That's why your father's handwriting was shaky on that last will. It wasn't age. It was sedation. I felt the air leave my lungs. For years I'd blamed myself. Thought I hadn't done enough. Hadn't fought hard enough to reach him. But it wasn't me. It was her. Michael spoke quietly. We can take this straight to the DA. There's enough here for criminal charges. Fraud, medical tampering, elder abuse. I stared at the documents, at the dates, the signatures, the evidence of every quiet crime Evelyn thought she'd buried. My father hadn't died peacefully. He'd died surrounded by lies. But now, for the first time, those lies had a paper trail, and I was holding it. When Evelyn realized we'd uncovered the clinic, she didn't hide. She showed up at my door, smiling, and what she said next made my blood run cold. It was close to midnight when the knock came. 3 soft taps, polite, deliberate, the kind of knock that didn't belong to a stranger. When I opened the door, Evelyn was standing there in the rain. No umbrella, no mask, just that same unsettling calm she wore when she knew something I didn't. Can we talk? She asked softly. I didn't move. You shouldn't be here. I know, she said, stepping under the porch light. Her makeup was smeared, her hair damp, but her voice was steady. You found the clinic, didn't you? I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The look in her eyes told me she already knew. She gave a faint smile. Of course you did. You're your father's daughter, always digging where you shouldn't. Why did you do it, Evelyn? I asked quietly. He trusted you. He loved you. She laughed, a brittle, hollow sound that didn't belong to a sane person. Loved me? He owned me. Every minute, every choice. I was just another project to him, another thing to control. He gave you everything. She took a step closer. He gave me nothing I didn't earn. I built his empire while he wasted away. You think he made all those decisions? Please. I kept it running when he couldn't even sign his own name. You drugged him, I snapped. You stole from him. You turned him into a puppet. Her expression hardened. I did what I had to do. And don't act like you're some saint. You walked away, Claire. You left him with me. You made it easy. That hit harder than I expected. Because deep down, a part of me had always wondered if she was right. But then I saw her eyes, cold, unblinking, and remembered what Ryan had found. No, she wasn't right. She was rewriting history. Again. You're going to prison, I said. She tilted her head. Maybe. But before that happens, you should ask yourself one thing. What do you really know about your father's death? My pulse spiked. What are you talking about? She smiled faintly. You think it was natural causes? He didn't die peacefully, Claire. He begged for it to stop. I froze. Rain poured harder outside, thunder rolling somewhere in the distance. You're lying, I whispered. Evelyn leaned closer, her voice almost tender. Am I? Or did your father finally realize what it felt like to lose control? Then she turned, walked down the steps, and disappeared into the storm. I stood there trembling, her words echoing in my head, wondering. Had my father known what she was doing? Or had he let her? The next morning, Ryan called again, but this time he wasn't calm. Evelyn Cross was dead, and somehow I was the prime suspect. The phone rang before sunrise. Ryan's voice was tight, almost disbelieving. She's gone, Claire. Evelyn Cross is dead. For a moment, I couldn't process it. I just stood there in my kitchen, staring at the steam rising from my untouched coffee. She's what? Dead, he repeated. Found in her car last night. Engine running. Windows up. Carbon monoxide. My first thought wasn't grief. It was suspicion. Evelyn Cross didn't just give up. She wasn't built for surrender. Do the police think it was suicide? I asked. Ryan hesitated. They're not sure. But here's the problem. Your name came up. The neighbors said they saw her at your place a few hours before she died. I gripped the counter to steady myself. Ryan, she showed up uninvited. I didn't touch her. I know, he interrupted gently. But the timing looks bad. And get this, the note they found in her car had your name on it. What kind of note? He sighed. It just said, She knows everything. That's it. My chest went cold. That's not a confession. It's a setup. Michael joined the call a few minutes later. Calm, careful, already in damage control mode. Claire, listen to me. Don't talk to the press. Don't answer calls from anyone but us. They'll twist your words. Let Ryan handle the police. But the moment I hung up, my phone started blowing up anyway. Headlines everywhere. Evelyn Cross found dead. Stepdaughter questioned in investigation. They used my college photo, the one with my smile frozen halfway, like I already knew this day would come. By noon, reporters were outside my apartment. Microphones, cameras, voices shouting my name like I was a criminal. And somewhere in the chaos, I realized something awful. This was her final move. She hadn't just wanted revenge. She wanted to take me down with her. Ryan showed up later that evening, eyes dark with exhaustion. The coroner says there's something off about the scene, he said. Too clean. No residue, no fingerprints on the ignition. Whoever staged it wanted it to look like suicide, but it's sloppy. I stared at him, my throat tight. You think someone killed her? He nodded slowly. Maybe. Or maybe she wanted us to think that. Either way, she planned this ending, Claire. Every step. For years, she'd manipulated everyone around her. Even from the grave, she was still pulling strings. But Ryan wasn't finished. He reached into his jacket, pulling out a flash drive sealed in a small plastic bag. This was in Evelyn's safety deposit box, he said. Addressed to you. My stomach twisted. To me, he nodded. And you're not going to believe what's on it. Because when I plugged that flash drive in, I didn't just learn the truth about Evelyn. I learned the truth about my father. When I slid the flash drive into Ryan's laptop, my hands wouldn't stop shaking. There was only one file. No name, no date, just a single video labeled to Claire. Ryan pressed play. The screen flickered. For a moment, all I saw was static. Then, my father's face appeared. He looked thinner, older, and tired in a way I'd never seen before. But his eyes, they still carried that same quiet strength that could calm a storm. Claire, if you're watching this, I guess Evelyn's gone. And that means my plan worked, or it didn't. Either way, you deserve the truth. I could feel my pulse in my throat. Ryan didn't move, just let the video play. I know what she did to me. I knew long before I got sick. I let her think she was winning, because I needed her to reveal everything. What I didn't expect was that I wouldn't survive long enough to tell you this myself. He paused, coughing. Hard, painful. When he lifted his head again, his voice cracked. I found out about the drugs, the forged signatures, the clinic. But what broke me wasn't her. It was what I realized about myself. I became everything I swore I'd never be. Cold, controlling, distant. I let her convince me that pushing you away would keep you safe. I was wrong, Claire. I was wrong about everything. Tears burned behind my eyes. I hadn't heard his voice in months, and now it felt like he was speaking directly to the part of me that had never stopped being his little girl. Evelyn wasn't the only one who lied. I did too. About the company. About your mother's death. It wasn't an accident, Claire. She confronted me about Evelyn months before the crash. We fought that night. She drove away angry. And when the police said it was an accident, I let them believe it. He looked down, trembling. Evelyn didn't kill her. I did, not with my hands, but with my silence. And I've been paying for it ever since. My whole body went numb. Ryan slowly closed his eyes as if even he couldn't bear to watch the rest. Evelyn found out years later. She used it against me. Blackmail, guilt, whatever she could. That's why I never left her. That's why I couldn't fight her head on. She owned my secret. And I let her. He leaned closer to the camera. But she forgot one thing. Guilt can destroy you. Or it can save you. I chose to turn mine into something that would protect you, even if it meant she'd destroy me first. You were my redemption, Claire. Always. The video ended there, mid-breath, mid-sentence. The screen went black. I just sat there, frozen. My father wasn't the man I thought he was. He wasn't innocent. But he wasn't a monster either. He was human, broken, flawed, and trying to make things right in the only way he knew how. Ryan's voice was quiet. You okay? I nodded slowly. No, but I understand now. Because the truth didn't just clear my father's name. It gave me a choice. To carry the hate that destroyed them both. or to finally let it end. The sun was rising when I finally stepped outside. For the first time in months, the air felt clean, like the storm had finally passed. Ryan had gone home. Michael had promised to handle the legal side, but me? I just needed quiet. I drove to my father's house, the one Evelyn tried to turn into a museum. The gate creaked open, the garden wild and overgrown now. Inside, dust hung in the light like ghosts. I went straight to his office. His chair was still there, his glasses still on the desk, the faint smell of his cologne clinging to the bookshelves. And on the wall, my mother's portrait. For years I'd avoided that room. Too much memory, too much anger. But now, all I felt was peace. I stood in front of the portrait and whispered, "It's over." Maybe not perfectly, maybe not cleanly, but it was over. I thought about Evelyn, about how far she'd gone trying to win a game no one could ever win. And my father, a man who'd built an empire but couldn't escape his own guilt. In the end, they'd both been trapped by the same thing: control. The need to hold on until everything broke. I didn't want that for myself. So I called Michael. "Sell the company," I said. "All of it. Donate the proceeds to the Alzheimer's Foundation in my father's name." He hesitated. "Are you sure? That's your legacy," I smiled faintly. "No, that's his. Mine starts after this." When I hung up, I opened my father's last letter again. At the bottom, beneath his signature, was a line I'd missed before. "Don't let the past define you, Claire. Let it teach you how to live without fear." I folded it carefully and slipped it into my jacket. As I left the house, the first light of morning hit the windows, and for just a second, I swear I saw my father's reflection smiling back. Not the CEO, not the man who hid his guilt, just a father who'd finally made peace. I walked down the driveway, past the oak tree that had outlived us all, and felt something I hadn't felt in years: freedom. Sometimes revenge ends a story, but forgiveness, that's where mine finally began.